Welcome into this preseason edition of the Duval Dive. Not just preseason in the sense that it's that part that's before the season. We're talking actually have football to talk about, but in that kind of whose line is it anyway, where the lineups are all made up and the points don't matter, right? Anyways, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguars on SI. And listen, the the movement is already in place by way of make Travis Etienne great again, make Etienne great again. Mega is going on with the first touchdown all the way in the season so far, or at least of the year, I should say, not the season. And by the way, remember everyone, it is definitely preseason for everybody. Just ask Christian Braswell, who had that touchdown stolen from him. If you don't believe me, just check the tape. Just saying. Right. So with all that early silliness out of the way, of course, we have a signing to talk about. And of course, that preseason game for all the things that we liked and may not have liked as much that took place as the Jags did battle with the Chiefs in the 26-13 victory. But like I said, anyway, the points don't matter. But a guy who does matter in my life, my personal champion of BigCatCountry.com, Travis D. Holmes. What's going on, my friend?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm I'm working on about 5 hours of sleep, and burning them at both ends of the. Hey, we got to get this content out, baby. Big Cat Country. Heading up to Jacksonville, watching this exciting game between the Chiefs and the Jaguars. We're gonna get into it, but yeah, it's a great day. But I'm trying to get it in for you guys.
Hey, listen, trying to be a family man on Sunday as well as a Jaguar fan, it's always its challenge. And it'll happen throughout the season. It's a thing we do here. But nonetheless, let's get off the ground here. You as the Jaguar, a member of the Duval Devout, Travis, the recent signing, of course, of one Tayshaun Gibson. I need your take on that, being ready. But by the way, I got to show love to the people here in the comments. Angelo Smith dropping the first Duval involving the actual football. And of course, a guy who should be on the cabinet if indeed we get the make Etienne great again campaign to be successful. Our guy, Michael Barber in the building. So yeah, I love it off the bat. We're getting the contributions. By the way, real quick apologies. We did kick off just a little bit late, but I promise you'll still get your 30 minutes of content out of us. We aren't union workers. We're not paid by the hour. Anyways, the signing of Gibson, like I know this is an older signing, or I shouldn't say an older signing, a player that's been on the roster before. But I mean, does this excite you that he's back in the building? What do you think?
I won't say excitement because I'm not that guy. But I will definitely. I'm just not. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And my wife was pissed off when I wasn't excited about our wedding. I literally am not that guy.
We've gotten into some heated conversations. You're
hey, no. We've had this conversation like when driving up to and from Jacksonville. I'm not the guy to get excited about anything until it happens. Until I see product. I need proof of concept. That's just who I am. So I'm not excited about the signing only because hey, we'll see what happens in week 7 once his suspension is done and he's actually playing on the field, contributing in special teams, doing something along those lines. But for the moment, it's a positive signing from the perspective of Trent Baalke making, a very low risk move because he doesn't take up a roster spot again until week 7. So the team can do whatever they want to do up until that time frame. He basically guarantees himself a roster spot for 6 weeks while he's suspended. And whether that means Adrian Amos or Terrell Edmonds, whoever they decide to keep on the roster in that spot while Dewey's injured, they can still keep them for their first 6 weeks and then they can kick the ball down the road. It's a no risk signing in that way. So overall, it's a good signing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you seeing the value there. That makes a lot of sense. And as for what you don't think is exciting or not, Michael Barber saying a little bit of TMI there. That might be a thing. There are some things, hey, listen, he didn't mention whether or not he was excited about the wedding night. So I think that might be a little bit more TMI.
Hey, that's proof of concept, buddy. All right. At the end of the day, hey, my wife knows who I am. She knows who she was marrying, man. And it worked out well. We're coming up on 13 years. Hey, we're doing well.
Well, yeah. Let me go to this. Mike's got another comment in there, but let me go to Angelo's question here because I'm kind of curious your take on this. I doubt we have an exact answer if this question pops up, but he asks, how long will Eric Armstead be on the PUP list?
I believe Doug's already predicted that everything is going exactly as the planned. That originally they were aware that he was going to be, remotely hobbled or whatever you want to call it from the moment of signing. So
Mhm.
they already knew he was injured in the postseason of last year. Again, before the signing, they have the expectation that he was going to be ready to go by training camp. They didn't say when in training camp. So overall, it just sounds like they're just being cautious with him, and they don't seem to care as much that he's ready to play. As long as he's ready to play by week one, doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
before the season starts, the expectation should be that he's off the PUP list unless something went wrong within his recovery.
Yeah, if he hits a setback, that's obviously a different question. And I feel like we would hear that if that happened. But
Right. I mean, I've seen him, hanging out. I've seen him running around and everything else. Like he seems fine. He seems normal. It just seems like they're just being precautionary, like they are with Darnell Savage. They're just
right,
being cautious.
these are both guys with more than 10 years of football under their belt too. I think
Right.
that's worth mentioning at the NFL level too, I might add. But I'll say this, Angelo, when will he be off the pup list? I'm going to say when the football counts. I have no reason to believe he'll take preseason snaps. This is just my opinion, and because they got guys they want to develop
Mm.
or get some reps in with, you know, crap. Who's the other D tackle that's battling injury? Remind me,
Oh yeah,
Travis.
Jefferson.
Yeah, there. Well, not just Jefferson, but the veteran too.
Another veteran D tackle that's battling injury.
It was a guy that was there last year. He had the back issue.
Oh, Devon Hamilton.
Thank you. They're looking at him too. They're going to probably
Right, but he's playing. Right, at least he's playing. I give him that.
right. He's playing, and they want to get some film and see what they got with him if he's rehabbed well enough. Any of that stuff. Um,
Fair point.
Eric Armstead, relatively speaking, is a known commodity, and
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
Okay, but I would say this. I if I have to make a guess, it's probably going to be before the week 3 game. The week 3 preseason game against was the Falcons. Just because they already stated that the starters are going to play in that third game, and the starters aren't going to play in the week 2 game against Tampa Bay, and I kind of wouldn't expect him to come off the PUP this week. If he does, great. That's a great decision for them, but I don't know that that's necessarily where they're leaning. We'll see. But probably if he's going to take preseason snaps, it's going to be before the week 3 game.
Yeah, I don't think he will at all. But yeah, you're right. If it happens, it's going to be in Atlanta, right? So
Yeah.
there you go. Mike asking about, are you guys concerned about the whiff from Trayvon Walker in the game? He did a few times last season, had Wentz dead to rights. Listen, you're 100% correct. We'll address that later because it's going to be involved with some of the defensive evaluation, certainly from the very critical and skillful eye of one discerning eye, if you will, of one Travis D. Holmes. But before we get into that, listen, the people are here to talk about what they enjoyed. Obviously, we saw in the intro there Travis Etienne's touchdown, the first of the year, the first real step in the mega campaign, all of that. And by the way, another play, I want to talk about this first because it was another first, not just for the Jags, but for the entire league. And of course, that is the first kickoff with XFL style rules that the Jags had this season, and Parker Washington doing Parker Washington things, and it wasn't even involving catching a pass. So we're gonna show not tell here. Keep this up. This is an excellent first impression, and certainly a lot more we'll see. Again, we're not expecting Jamal Agnew to walk through the building, but yeah, this is going to be enough.
I won't say gadget bats, but he's not your prototypical receiver.
Yeah.
And now you have someone like Parker Washington who can fill that same role, whether it's Devin Duvernay, whether it's a running back like Tank Bixby. Across the league, a lot of these guys are trying to figure out the best ways. And frankly, pat on the back to Jaguars special teams coordinator Heath Farwell. He seems to have cracked the code on this, man. Like I'm not gonna I don't want to proclaim it on I don't want to proclaim any one thing on a preseason game, but the fact that you ended the game with the NFL's longest current kick return, and then you ended that same game with the third longest kick return in the NFL, Tank's kick return, and Parker's kick return was the longest. On something that's kind of new, and we hadn't even seen one real explosive kick return across the league. I mean, you might be doing something right, sir. I'm looking forward to talking to him about that this week.
especially in a world where you have a coaching staff like the Chiefs, who, like, say what you will, I know that they're not playing starters, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, but you would expect guys to be more prepared and more coached up like this. Bonus points to the Jags coaching staff for getting that oops accidental safety to go through there too. Because I have to admit, on first glance, I missed it too. And then they go do the replay. I'm like, oh snap, that is a safety. And I was a guy that was covering the XFL 3.4 for the entire season with the Orlando Guardians as a member of the 3-point conversion. So like, excellent work there for having that together. And whenever you're in a position to say that your guys outcoached Andy Reid's guys, that's a good day too. I'm gonna throw that out there. You
I mean, they did it. They did outcoach, but it's always hard. I had this argument with.
within the context of special teams, by the way. I don't mean the whole game. Like, yeah.
I would argue the whole game.
Well, I mean,
And
see,
this was a conversation we had in the press box during the game because someone else mentioned that, hey man, this Kansas City team does not look well coached. And I'm like, I don't think they've been well coached for a while. And someone was like one of those famed outrage looks. And
people
I'm like,
compare.
understand the off season that they've had off the field, understand everything that they've gone through, understand that look at what their special teams look like across the board. The fact of the matter is they have a mutant at quarterback. And a lot of and that cures a lot of ails. That cures a lot of wrongs. Even when you miss, if you have that guy back there, you're probably going to be all right. So I'm not saying that the Chiefs are bad or anything like that, but I think the Jaguars did outcoach the Chiefs, and I think this game should have been a lot worse if the Jaguars wouldn't have been outplayed in some specific personnel areas that we got to get into.
Yeah, there were certain coaching wins they had. We talked about that on Twitter with some good blitz calls and things like that late in the game. But yeah, you mentioned, of course, Patrick Lavon Mahomes II. I get it. Also, let's not, and I'm going to say this in a fashion that where you're going to have to agree with it because you didn't even bring them up. Probably the most underrated interior line core in the NFL. Just throwing that out there.
Sure.
Nobody wants to talk about Creed Humphrey. And listen, even though the man wore Crocs to the interview I had with him in Phoenix in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, he was still a badass and a very fun and intelligent human being. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, that's fair. But no, the Jaguars, it's funny because a lot of people are talking about the performance of both the Jaguars offense and defense. Rightfully so. We got to talk about what we see on tape. And many people who want to give the Jaguars passes in certain areas also want to make sure we mention, hey, Tyson Campbell didn't play. Arik Armstead didn't play. The Jaguars are missing 2 of their 5 starting O linemen. And
Devon
all of these things,
as we just mentioned, all that. Ezra Cleveland also a scratch, right?
These things are objectively true. But also, the Chiefs were also missing their starting left guard. They were missing all-pro defensive tackle Chris Jones, missing their middle linebacker, missing Justin Reed, their strong safety, missing their starting cornerback and both backup cornerbacks on the right side.
Yeah.
Everybody has an excuse not to ball out. At the end of the day, we can only judge what's on the tape, so we want to make sure we just have that conversation.
As I said, the lineups are all made up and the points don't matter. Anyways, right. And by the way, anybody wondering why Chris Jones isn't playing and when I think he'll play, please see my response to Arik Armstead. Anyways, so, I wasn't going to go this direction immediately, but I see some good questions in the comments from Mike and Angelo here. Let's see. He mentions here that they also have Duvernay in waiting. Why didn't he kick return? Was it a case of we know? Yeah. Well, I'll answer the question this way, Mike. Who's to say that he won't return some kicks in 2 more preseason games? That's perfectly plausible. I think they had Parker Washington and Tank Bigsby doing it because those are going to be the primary guys that they have in mind come week 1 in Miami, right? And they need their reps first, So, yeah. With all that in mind, you could see Duvernay get a shot or 2. I would say maybe late game 2 and some point in week 3 as well.
That's interesting. I actually thought the opposite. I was thinking of it like, oh no, they know Duvernay is going to be the guy, and they would just want to give Tank and Parker those opportunities to kind of show what they have because they've always said everyone has to prepare like you're the starter. Everyone has to prepare like you're the starter. Competition, bang the table. That's what they've said from day one, whether you're the special teams coordinator or the defensive, or the defensive coordinator or the head coach. So they allowed Parker and they allowed Tank to take most of those kick returns, and we didn't see Duvernay at all, did we?
No,
Did he
I
take
don't
any?
think we
I
saw
don't
him
recall.
return kicks. No,
Yeah,
and he may
so
not be in consideration for that. Who knows? I mean, Mike mentions it too. They also drafted a dude late specifically
right,
to
but he
address.
didn't play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was inactive as well. Right. So with all of that being said,
So I
I
believe I just think that they believe that it's going to be Duvernay, and they want to see what else they have because that those are those things that can make it or break it when you're talking about roster decisions down the line for all the other positions. We have guys who can play multiple spots at that point.
you very consistently have portrayed Peterson's stance that everybody needs to prepare their starter and all of that.
Yeah.
You've done so in Twitter, on this show, probably at some point on BigCatCountry.com. Bing! So the only reason why I think this is different is this isn't just about physical opportunities or guys that can do it. This is a straight on revamp of the process. Guys have not done this before, so I get a
Fair.
world where he wants to get that out of the way, and especially next week, I wouldn't expect. It could be possible Parker Washington and Tank Bigsby both will be getting a lot more reps playing air quotes regular football, regular offense specifically, because with joint practices next week, you may not even see starters on Saturday against Tampa Bay in Everbank Stadium.
No, you're right. You're unlikely to see him. I mean, Doug's already said it. So to that point, if we don't see it in practice, we may not see it at all.
Actually, yes, I remember Doug saying that during it might have even been in minicamp where Travis D. Holmes asked Coach Peterson about how he was starting the guys. So
Gotta get it out of the way early. Yeah.
Captain Insider handling the business up in here. But with a little bit more offensive prowess, we'll go to the defense soon enough and things about the offense we were not concerned about. But listen, I know it was one catch, but it was the biggest catch of the night, distance-wise. You already know where I'm going if you're a member of the Duval Dive. You see Travis D. Holmes nodding if you're watching on the Duval Dive YouTube channel. Bing! Which, by the way, subscribe! So with all that, let's show, not tell, about Brian Thomas Jr. on the sideline wins the day. However, CJ Beathard, I'm sorry, dude, was underthrowing things all bleeding night. Yes, I will be critical of him. Yes, I would currently put Mac. Did not yet. What do you say, sir?
Bingo. I said it in the press box to Gus Lowe, Big Guy Country's Gus Lowe, our site manager, right after the catch happened. I said, if that was Calvin in this situation, we're not leaving it up to the refs. He came down with the ball, even though it was underthrown. Yes, and if that would have been thrown a little bit farther, he might have had a chance to, make a play on the ball, maybe even get a few yak yards out of it. So I appreciate him coming down with it because that is the difference between PI and touchdowns, and that's a 7-point difference every game.
I mean, maybe it's not so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Anyways, maybe some other things that crept. By the way, yeah, we mentioned Trevor Lawrence. He didn't have a particularly terrible night. I know he had to take a sack. I know there was 1 4th and 5 where he took a shot at BTJ. Yeah. Everybody's talking about how Evan Ingram was open. You mentioned it on Twitter. My editor at Jaguars on SI, bing, John Shipley, mentioned it on Twitter as well. It was a whole thing. Overall, though, I don't think anybody is going to say Trevor had a bad night at all.
He was 3 of 4, 42 yards, a touchdown. He was very efficient in what he needed to do. He just didn't do it on the one down we wanted him to. And if you saw his post-game presser or his post-game interview, it kind of felt like he just really wanted. He didn't come out and clearly state it. It was kind of one of those vibes or feeling things. Like he didn't seem concerned about the fact that there was a sack or that he didn't throw the ball up. It felt more like he just really wanted BTJ. He wanted that play to be on BTJ. And frankly, I understand it. However, hey man, situational awareness, football IQ is 4th and 5. Keep the drive going. If BTJ is not there because they're playing cover 2-man, come off of it. Find your second read, Evan Ingram, or your third read, Christian Kirk, who both were open on that play.
Mm-hmm.
And get the ball out and keep the chains moving. So the offensive line did well in that way. The offensive line blocking did well in pass blocking. There are some opportunities. I mean, screw it. I'm not going to BS this. There is a lot of opportunity for, Hans on the left at the left guard spot and Mitch Morris at the center. As far as run blocking was concerned on that first and those second drives, it simply wasn't there. Hans did have one good pull block on, I think it was an outside zone that ETN made of like an 8-yard run on the second drive. But that first drive was Mitch Morris and Hands basically both being pushed back. I'm talking 1 to 2 yards back on each of those runs. They got to figure that out. They got to get that looked at and be better. Maybe when Ezra Cleveland comes back.
Yeah, Ezra Cleveland being back, of course, would be a big part of that, obviously. But hey, listen, in a world where Tank Bigsby had a 19-yard run and went 3 for 28, you could do worse in the run game, and that's what I like too. I mentioned this, by the way, on my article on the top performers on Jaguars on SI. Bing! Tank Bigsby being a big deal in not just in the offense, but as well on special teams, throwing blocks and making a return that could have put points on the board if the Jags could move it more than friggin' 8 yards in 3 plays.
Can somebody give Cooper Hodges his flowers, man? Like, I don't hear a lot of people talking about him. And again, I told me and you were texting about it. I tweeted about it for a little bit on the socials. Rewatching the game, Cooper Hodges had a great game. I don't care. Like, if you haven't heard anyone talk about it, talk to someone who watches the film, who looks at O-line play. Like, I specifically looked at it because I was concerned with the way that Hans played on the other side earlier in the game. So I wanted to see how Cooper Hodges was playing. He played really well in the running game, and actually, he just played solid overall. But not to mention that Luke Fortner, you may see everyone talking about him, busting a coverage or busting a block, having a mental error here and there. He had a good game. He really did. And I'm talking like actually in the run game. Like, Luke moved folks. I'm gonna say he's like this bruiser, but he had a really good game, and I think that's worth noting since everybody's always been down him this whole offseason. Meanwhile, Mitch Morris had a pretty rough first two series.
Right. I don't know that teams are coming out, or defenses specifically are coming out with game plans, but right now, if you're looking at this group without tape, you are worried about BTJ. You are worried about what they have there. And then amongst the backups, we've had conversations about how deep this receiver core is beyond the top 3 or 4. So again, if you're scheming that, you would be trying to dare them to run the football. And you're still getting good production from Dearness Johnson, rather. Sorry.
Yes.
And a lot of action there. So
that's fair.
We'll jump over to the defense here, though. I mean, for me, Ventrell Miller, I'm going to throw him and both Yasir Abdullah. I'm going to throw them both flowers for coming back from injuries in 2023 and making their presence known. Abdullah less so, but he did have the only sack in the first half, and that's where Mike mentioned Trayvon missing guys. Like, listen, 2 dudes missed before Abdullah cleaned up the trash there, so to speak. And that's basically his job in that scenario. So he did his job. Am I going to ring the bell and get worried about Walker yet? No. He's still a young player. He's still a guy that's going. I feel like if he's making that miss that we talked about earlier in Mike's comment when we brought it on the screen in Game 5, I'm worried. No.
But I have questions on the run defense. I mean, let's just say the starters, the defense across the board. It was not a good game. I say game. It was not a good series. Is that fair? Like, it was one series against the freaking mutant Pat Mahomes. And
who the hell do a field goal? We keep saying that, but like,
no. I want to no. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. Like, no. We didn't hold them to a field goal. 3 points were on the board, but they also dropped the ball that would have been a first down. He was wide open. I forget the receiver, Rashid Rice, drops the ball that he's wide open. There's no one 3 yards around him, and he just drops it. Come on, man. No, that's not a hold. Like, they literally picked up like 12 yards, 10 yards, 8 yards, had a 1 yard run, and then dropped the ball. Like, they fumbled the bag. And let's call that what it is.
I mean, listen, it wouldn't be the first time we saw that from a Chiefs receiver.
My only point is, hey, I want to give the defense credit when credit is earned. If you don't earn it, I can't give you that. I'm not saying you held them to a field goal. No, they drove down the field at will, and they basically just bumbled over themselves and had to kick a field goal because they screwed up.
But
I want to see this Jaguars defense play to their potential of what I've seen in practice on a daily basis. That's what I'm looking for.
That's a great point made. And listen, there's something to be said for taking advantage of an opportunity when given. But I personally was definitely very excited by the 2 guys I mentioned at linebacker. I mean, the big talk, of course. What's that?
So can I touch on Travis Gibson had a hell of a second series. He basically, I think Gus Lowe mentioned it right next to me. He mentioned he's like there was a tackle for a loss, there was a pressure, there was a quarterback hit, and this is like 3 plays in a row. Dorchette, that's the end of the series. And I was like, all right, that dude had a great game. And PFF said he was the second best defender on the Jaguars in how he played. Terrell Edmonds, apparently, Pro Football Focus, was the best player on the Jaguars defense. And funny enough, I actually had him in my Big Cat Country game recap, posted at midnight last night. So definitely, please take a look at it. Also had Edmonds as the top player on the defense. He had 2 forced fumbles. He gave up 6 yards in coverage. You're not going to do much better than that. Like, frankly, like the guy was out there laying a hit stick like he was the reincarnation of Jamal Adams. I'm here for that at all times. So he's fighting for a roster spot. That's something you want to see, especially in the first half of a football game.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, we're getting deep into it. I'd have to ask you how you feel like Jarian Jones did. I know he's the guy who I was watching on defense to try to see what we got out of him. And the hard thing about corners is if there's not stats, that can be a good thing. So there's that. And I think there's an element of that, 100%. What say you?
Bingo. That's really what it comes down to. He had an opportunity to almost get an interception on a tip ball. I believe that was by Breland. Breland speaks. And he barely missed that interception, but otherwise, I didn't see anything from him, like as far as him being challenged in the passing game. And a quiet day for a DB is a good day for a DB. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you say it just as well, if not better, than I could. But things that have to be said at this point, Travis, it's that time.
Lord,
tell the people where you can be found. Hey, we had a lot of special teams talk from the good comments we had here from Angelo and Mike in the comments, so I got to give them credit for that.
Hey, man, it's not often that we get to talk about special teams and not mention our kicker who made a 64 and a 65-yard kick back-to-back in pregame and then barely misses his 62-yarder during the game. So, yeah.
Tank Bigsby return. I mean, crazy stuff on special teams.
Yeah, special teams is balling out of control right now. So, hats off to, again, Heath Farwell and that special teams unit. I can be found in all of my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on bigcatcountry.com. As it's listed right here. Go to it, save it as your favorite. Stop getting, secondhand sports information from ESPN and all of these other guys who aren't even there. Like, come on, man. Talk to the people who are actually looking at what's going on the field, who are actually looking at the tape, who are actually in the building. Come on. Travis D. Holmes on Twitter. Follow me, Facebook, etc. All of those places, I'm going to definitely interact with you guys. I'm here to talk Jaguars football at all times because this is not only do I cover the team, I am in the mug. I am a fan like you guys. Come on, Mr. Nash, where can you be found, sir?
And for those of us who aren't members of the Duval, we still hope they do well because I like covering playoff football. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Also find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with Jaguars on SI, the Black and Gold Banneret, as well as my work with the 3-point conversion. Check out the Student of the Game podcast Wednesday nights at 9:00. This week, we are previewing the AFC East, which includes Miami. So you may want to check that one out. And then also my work with the Orlando Magic will be coming up here sooner than later at some point. So for Travis D. Holmes, special thanks to Mike Barber and Angelo Smith in the comments. Until next time, everyone, class dismiss. Wait a minute, we don't do the music yet. Hold on. There we go.
I like that remix. Let's go.